Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Bienvenidos, niños. Buenas noches, damas y caballeros, chicos y chicas. Excuse me. Niños de todas edades y bienvenidos a el Karey Carbaugh podcast. Episodio número 63. Welcome to the Karey Carbaugh podcast, episode number 63. My name is Karey Carbaugh, and this is the Karey Carbaugh podcast. I know we're doing this on a different night tonight. I appreciate your patience and your bearing with me. Last night kind of got away from me, as I've explained on a couple of these before. I'm starting to help out with a middle school group through an organization called Young Life, which is aimed at helping middle schoolers come to know Christ. And we had an opportunity to hang out with some of these young people, and I'm trying to get to know them and speak into their lives. And I just thought that that was an important part of that work. And as I've explained before, I feel that's a calling in my life and a very important thing for me. And I think perhaps an important part of where these podcasts may be heading. You'll understand more of that as I develop that further. Tonight's topic actually came from last week's talk and somewhat this week's talk at the Wildlife Middle School group. Tonight's topic is, would you rather have a house built on sand or on a rock? And I put that question out a couple of days ago. I'll read a few of the answers that came in because I think they're very indicative and important to this topic. It shows that I've got an audience that's very much in tune with what I'm talking to here. As I've explained before, I am a Christian. I don't force that belief on anyone, but I also don't hide it. So I hope that if some of you are not Christian believers, you will bear with me through this podcast. I am going to read a couple of biblical scriptures tonight. I don't always do that. But even if you're not a believer, I think some of these principles can be taken to heart. And you'll understand that as we go through this. If you would, let me know whether you're catching this live or on the replay by dropping the word live or replay, or simply an L or an R in the comments. And let me know where you're tuning in from. That's always interesting for me to see how wide this podcast is reaching. And as we go through this, if you are getting value, let me know that by dropping the word value or a V in the comments. Smash that like button if you like this. Like if you do. It always helps the algorithms to share this to more people. So I appreciate you doing those things for me. I'll remind you throughout the podcast. But let's dive in here. What did I have in mind with this? I think this can be taken in a couple of different directions. So let me start by literally, would you rather have a house built on sand or on a rock? I think it's kind of fun to think about that. I know I enjoy going to the beach. Perhaps at first glance, you might say it would be pretty cool to have a house built on sand, built on the beach. But if you think about that, what happens when the tide rises? When the floods come? The sand shifts, the tide goes back out, and the house that sits on the sand also shifts and moves. And so if you don't drill down far enough to anchor that house in bedrock or in rock of some sort, your house can have some problems. as the sand or the ground underneath it starts to shift. Similarly, if we think of our lives as sand versus rock, the sand can be kind of fun. Maybe living your life, going on vacations, going on excursions, having fun, maybe partying a lot. I know in many of our younger years, maybe we went to a lot of parties, and that was fun. It was a lot of shifting sand, a lot of different people, maybe meeting up with different groups of friends all the time, and things kept shifting and changing and moving around, and it was a lot of fun. But when things went wrong, were those people there for you? If you had trouble, could you count on those people that you went and partied and had fun with? Perhaps, but maybe not. And so as we start to look at this topic tonight, shifting sand can be a lot of fun. It can be enthusiastic. It can add energy and so forth to our life. But without that anchoring, when times get tough, when the sands start to shift in our life, in our relationships, it makes it difficult because things shift and things move around. So if we build our self-worth, as we look at this topic from a self-worth or a self-esteem perspective, which many of my podcasts are focused on, if we build our self-esteem and define our self-worth on the opinions of others, those can change. But if we develop our self-worth and our self-esteem, our feelings of well-being on principles that are anchored, for believers, Christian principles, building on a foundation of God and His rules, His guidance for our life, not necessarily the opinions of others, which can change and shift a lot. This topic that was brought up in the context of a bunch of middle schoolers who often build their self-esteem and self-worth based on peer pressure, based on what the popular opinion of the day is. And that can change. Not only can it change for middle schoolers and high schoolers, even elementary schoolers, but that can change throughout life. If you get into a business context, maybe you build your self-esteem and your self-worth around your job, your role in a company, and then you get laid off. What happens to that self-esteem if it's built on something that can change or shift? I would suggest that that can impact your self-esteem. I know I've experienced a layoff in my life, and I did define a lot of my feelings of self-worth based on my job at the time. And when I got laid off, that was a huge letdown and a huge impact in my life. Perhaps you can relate to that. If you can, drop the word relate in the comments. Let me know if you're getting value from any of this. I'd like to step for a moment into some biblical truths that speak to this. As many of you know, I am visually impaired. I've mentioned that on a few of these podcasts. So I'm going to use my phone tonight to read some of these Bible verses because I can read it quicker that way than trying to read to you verbally. So if you will, allow me, I'm going to pull up my biblical references here. The first one is going to be get the right thing here. Thought I had these queued up. Sorry about this. The first one I'm going to pull up is going to be in Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 to 27. Matthew 7, verses 24 to 27. And I'm just about there. Matthew 7, 24 to 27. And these are very similar references, these two that I'm going to read. But I think they speak greatly to this concept. Okay, here we go. I'm going to use my phone here.
Voiceover on. Bible. Chapter. Matthew 7. Button.
So Matthew 7, chapter 7, verses 24 through 27.
Therefore everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. 25. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. 26. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. 27. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. 28. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching. 29.
Okay, we went a little bit past that. Hopefully that wasn't too fast. I meant to slow that down before I started this. If you want to read that for yourself, again, it's Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 through 27. Talks about how the foolish man builds his house on sand, and when the rains came down, the sand shifted and the house
because he taught as one who had authority,
blew over. But the man who built his house on rock, or at least drilled down to rock, his house was able to withstand that force of the rain. The other reference, which I don't know that I'll read since I've got my phone.
Space.
Hang on just a second
Alert.
here.
Accessibility selected. Voiceover off.
Turn that voiceover off. Since I've got my phone sped up here, and it'll take me a minute to slow it down. The other reference is very similar, so I don't know that I'll take the time to read that here, but I will give you the reference. The other reference is in the book of Luke, chapter 6, verses 46 through 49. And it basically says the same thing, that talking about the wise man builds his house on rock, the foolish man builds his house on sand, which can shift and change, and the wise man who hears the word of God and heeds that, builds that as the framework of his self-esteem, his guidance for life, has a better chance of withstanding the storms. And the storms might be difficult things in your life. If you have a foundation built on God, you can withstand those difficult storms when they come. If you have people that are around you that can help keep you anchored and lift you up when those storms come, it makes it much easier to go through the storms of life, rather than if you just have shifting people that are changing all the time, you're not building those relationships. Those people are not going to be the solid rocks that are going to help you when the storms try and throw you off course. Whether that's in business, whether that's in your personal life, as we get thrown off course, we need those people to help bring us back and ground us. I would like to, because I posed this question a couple of days ago, and some of the answers that I got from some of you all, I'd like to share here, because I think they're very indicative of some of the wisdom of the people following these podcasts, and they really speak to this whole concept, as well as bringing up a few other aspects that I hadn't even really considered, actually. So let's take a look here. I'm going to pull up a couple of these comments. I'm not going to read them all, so I apologize if I don't pick yours. I did like this one from Brenda and Don Graffis, a couple friends of mine from the Longmont Chorale that I've mentioned that I sing in. She mentioned I'm pretty sure this was Brenda, mentioned a great song which says, on Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand. And that is so true. It's a great song, great lyrics, and speaks to this whole concept of building our foundation on the Word of God, which as a believer is very important. And then I also wanted to highlight a couple on this other post. My friend Miguel from Mexico says, keep on the rock, ... my Jesus. And that is so true. Again, speaking to the Word of God being the solid rock that we can base our lives upon. That word never changes. It is consistent, it is supportive, and it does not shift. This one I really liked for a few reasons. A guy that I grew up with in high school, Daniel Cooper, he says, it doesn't matter where you build your house. What matters is the foundation on which it is built. This applies to every aspect of your life. If you have a good foundation, i.e., parents and family, bro it up. You have a healthy and hard, strong home of your own. And I think that is very wise. That is very true, and speaks to some different aspects of this question. It talks about, that speaks to the importance of family, that it doesn't really matter where your house is, what your physical structure looks like. If you have relationships, if you have family, if you have strong friends, that's what's going to keep you grounded. It's not living in a fancy house. It's not living in a fancy place. Some of these things might be fun, but really what keeps us all grounded is family, relationships, friends that we can count on. Maybe it's co-workers that we can count on, even if the job itself goes away. I know I have some friends from my former job that I still keep in contact with that can help me weather storms in my life. So I think it's important as we look at this topic that we continue to focus on those relationships, those solid rocks in our life. Family, friends, parents, perhaps spouses, close friends, not just casual friends, and people that we can count on to weather the storms, that have our back. That's what I wanted to bring forth in this topic. And once again, I hope you've gotten value from this. Let me know if you have. As we bring this in for a landing, I'd just like to leave you with that thought, that look for those solid people in your life that can lift you up and surround you. Maybe that's pointing out things that need work in your life. That can also be supportive. It's not just the people who always tell you good things. So with that, once again, I hope you've gotten value from this. And once again, smash that like button if you do, if you like this. And leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you found valuable, what you liked most about this. If you would like to be added to my email list, drop the word email in the comments, and I'll reach out to you to get your email address privately. I'm starting to develop an email list that I can use to further some more private discussions on some of these topics, and would love to add you to that list if you'd like to be added. Next week, I'm not positive when I'm going to be able to jump on this podcast. I am going to be traveling, so I may actually be in the air at the time of this podcast, but as we get closer to next week, watch my Facebook page, my Instagram page, and I will let you know when I'm going to be able to jump on to do this podcast. I do plan to do one next week. It just may be at a slightly different time. So I appreciate your patience and bearing with me as I continue to do these and continue to try to do life at the same time. I do see a couple comments that I'll call out here real quick before we close out. Teresa Romero. Welcome in, Teresa. Thank you so much for joining. Teresa says, became friends with Cheryl. And then 4 others. Actually, I don't know that these are comments here. I thought these were comments in here, but I don't think they are. I think those are just some Facebook messages. Teresa does say, I just caught the tail end of the podcast, but we'll watch the replay. I appreciate that, Teresa. Thank you so much. You've been one of my consistent followers, and I really do appreciate your support and following these. My friend Miguel from Mexico, saludos. Excelente tema. Excelente tema. Muchas gracias, hermano. Muchas gracias, Miguel. Thank you very much. I'm glad you got value from this and you liked this theme. I think it is important for us when we talk about many of these podcasts, as I've explained, are to help with feelings of self-esteem, feelings of self-worth. And this hit me as this topic was being presented to middle schoolers, that not only is it important for middle schoolers to look at this, but even us as adults. I think many things in life, going back, there's a book that says everything I needed to know I learned in kindergarten is the title of a book that I remember. I'm not sure I've actually read the book, but I always remember the title. And I think that's so true. I think the things that we teach kids and teach youth are important lessons that we as adults can also learn from. So I do hope you found this valuable. I get a lot of my topics either from sermons at church, or now I'm starting to find, as I'm helping with the Young Life group, I can see some themes coming from there as well. So stay tuned, and I will definitely be on next week at some point. I'll let you know as we get closer. But once again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for your continued support. I can't believe we've done 63 of these now. And thank you for bearing with me as I shift some of these times around, as I'm trying to find a new time that works with my recent involvement with Young Life. So thank you, and have a very blessed evening, blessed day, depending on when you're watching this. Until we meet again on next week's podcast, or if I pop up in the meantime, Make it a great day for those around you. Be a blessing to those you come in contact with. Do something positive for someone else this week. And make it a blessed day. Thanks again for watching, and we will see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye for now.